Good morning. This is on State of Florida versus Jamel Demmons. Present is Mr. Demmons. Mr. Demmons, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
No, I gave us that. Give us that. Movement. First part of November. Friday. Good for you guys? Number 10?
Very good.
State, 10? 10? November 10? That's fine.
Sources are revealing YNW Melly will be released on bond this week due to one reason. Before hearing the reason, we first need to read the bond report, which goes to state YNW Melly's attorney, Stewart, filed a motion to set bond with Judge Murphy on Tuesday afternoon, August the 15th. According to Broward County, YNW Melly, his counsel, and the prosecution appear in front of Judge Murphy again for a status hearing on Friday, August the 18th. The YNW Melly retrial begins Monday, October 9th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Then in the official bond paperwork, it would go on and read, the defendant, Jamel, by and through his undersigned counsel, files this motion to set bond as grounds therefore states the following, that the defendant, Jamel, is charged in an indictment with 2 counts of first with a firearm. That occurred on or about the 26th day of October 2018. It continues that on February 8th, 2019, the Myanmar Police Department issued an arrest warrant authorizing the arrest of the defendant on the above mentioned charges. Then 5 days later, on February 13th, 2019, the defendant voluntarily surrendered at the authorities at the Broward County Jail and has remained in custody since that time. Continuing that the defendant commenced trial on this cause on April 11th, 2023, and this court declared a mistrial on July 22nd, 2023, because the jury could not reach a verdict. The defendant now has remained in custody for over 4 years and has never requested a bond hearing until now. Then ending with, the co-defendant that has been charged with the same charges of first as well as additional charges of 2 counts of accessory has been released out of custody on a bond. And they're referring to YNW Bortland, trying to make the point of how YNW Bortland was allowed on bond even though YNW Melly was in the same car as Bortland. Why would YNW Melly have to sit in jail for the last 5 years? Then a lawyer would go on to share why YNW Bortland was granted the house arrest.
And he was able to negotiate a bond for him because of the charges that he was charged with, because they felt that he wasn't the man, and because of his prior criminal history, which I think was very sparse. So all those things went into whether or not he was going to be given a bond. I think at the time that the bond was being argued, there was the evidence that was being presented at his bond hearing was very difficult to kind of gel together in terms of, as you've seen during the trial, right? So there's a lot of things that are going on in the trial that you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't really gel. Some things are out of whack. And that's what happens at an Arthur hearing when you're moving for bond on this type of charge.
However, in the bond paperwork, it's where it says, and I quote, this court declared a mistrial on July 22nd, 2023. Because the jury could not reach a verdict, the defendant has remained in custody for over 4 years and has never requested a bond hearing until now, is where it plays into YNW Melly's favor to now be released on bond. A lawyer would mention the judge looks at bond hearings a little differently when the inmate requesting the bond doesn't ask for it every few months. And in YNW Melly's case, he has never requested a bond until now. And the judge making the decision is also the same judge that granted Melly his mistrial.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Joe. She's a juror inquiry form. It indicates that after further discussions, reviewing the evidence and speaking freely amongst the jurors, we are still unable to reach a unanimous decision. So at this time, what I'm going to do is just declare a mistrial, the case was mistried, and again, I want to thank you very much for your time and attention. It's very much appreciated. You're free to go. All right, score time. Thank you, ladies.
As Judge Murphy knows all of the evidence against YNW Melly, including the defenses that is on his side, which begins with no firearm even being found that relates to this crime occurring. As while it was being revealed in the courtroom there is no firearm, YNW Melly's reaction is very confident.
Why not?
So the first thing is I didn't have a firearm, so I can't know which firearm I'm going to use in order to replicate any of my tests. So I can't make tests for this determination because I don't know what firearm was used.
Okay. Do you have a...
Including the testimony from YNW Melly's 6th grade best friend, Adrian Davis, as Davis would reveal to the jury as well as everyone inside of the courtroom that YNW Melly wasn't even at the crime scene.
Are you 100% sure that Melly got into the red Mitsubishi to go home?
Yes.
Are you 100% sure that this young man learned of his friends at the exact same time you learned of it?
Yes.
And that was at the house?
Yes.
Are you 100% sure that when people were getting on the phone that this young man was looking for his phone to call people?
Yes.
As Adrian Davis would even double down his claims of saying YNW Melly is innocent, because he would go on to share that YNW Melly was picked up by the YNW members that were driving in the red vehicle that was at the recording studio. The members in the red vehicle needed to pick up YNW Melly as they needed somebody with a set of house keys to allow them into the YNW mansion.
Okay. So the only two people you know who had a key to the house was this young man
Yes.
and Cortland Henry.
Yes.
Did you see this young man unlock the door of the house?
Yes.
Who was the last person to get out of the red Mitsubishi to go inside the house?
Trayvon, he was in the cot still asleep.
Did you see where Melly went?
To his room.
And where was his bedroom?
When you first walked in the house, came Mrs. right down the left.
Okay. This is a 1 or 2 story house?
2.
As Davis mentions that he saw YNW Melly walk to the front door, open the door, and then walk straight to his bedroom to go to sleep. Then while sleeping for roughly an hour or two, members in the YNW house would begin screaming, yelling for everybody to wake up as they were just learning about what happened to Sack Chaser and Juvie.
Did there come a time in the early morning hours that you were woken up and heard some distressing news?
Yes.
What did you hear?
That second Julie.
When you heard that, did you see Melly in the house?
Yes.
Did you see Melly how he was dressed in the house?
Yes.
What was he wearing?
Shorts and a t-shirt, I think.
Okay.
As once again, Davis would make the claim that he saw YNW Melly exit his bedroom wearing t-shirt and shorts, and also learning about Sack Chaser and Juvie alongside Davis. Now this sets up YNW Melly with an alibi. It also sets up YNW Melly for not having a firearm because there was never one found, which definitely could have led to the mistrial, which was granted by the same judge that will be in charge of giving YNW Melly bond or not. However, there is some evidence that could reveal YNW Melly is guilty, which could affect the bond hearing as well, which all begins with Sergeant Williams, who investigated the Jeep that they were driving in, and then they revealed to the courtroom there's no way this could have been a drive-by.
Assignment, which is to determine if this is a drive. And my determination was that this is not a drive-by, and it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture to describe it. All of these rounds are done. One is done at a stationary position. At a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in. The one round that has some movement in it, which is round site L here, the actually moving in that to create the little bit of a that you see there.
Okay, a lot of information in that answer, so let's break it down a little bit. You mentioned a So I'm gonna zoom in on site F.
Sergeant Williams took note of every single hole that was inside of the car. He then used what is known as the stick method to find out how the holes were created, including the direction of where it could have came from and the angle.
Number, you said 17 outside the car. How many rounds were inside of the car?
3.
And can you exclude the for Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas as coming from outside of the car?
Yes. From the driver's side back seat.
As to the shot that was Christopher Thomas, where did that emanate from?
Driver's side back seat.
No. Is it possible for there to have been 2 inside that car?
No.
Why not?
There is no time.
Where Sergeant Williams would guarantee the crime must have occurred from somebody that was sitting inside of the car, and more importantly, was sitting in the back left seat, which is exactly where YNW Melly was, as YNW Juvie's mother would be called to the stand, and she would confirm where everybody was sitting.
Can you state your name, your full legal name for the jury?
Leon Phillips.
Okay. And are you related to one of the victims in this case?
Yes, I am.
How so?
I'm his mother,
And who is that?
Christopher Thomas.
Pause it at 2:19:15. Ms. Phillips, did you see who entered into the occupants who entered into that gray Jeep?
Mm-hmm.
And is that a yes?
Yes.
Do you recognize where your son entered that gray Jeep?
Yes.
Which seat, if you can identify for the jury?
He got in the back seat on the right hand side.
Did you recognize the individual that got into the back seat on the left side, the rear driver's side?
Yes.
And who was that individual?
Janelle.
And Jamel, is that the defendant, Jamel Demons?
Yes, ma'am.
So with the jury now hearing from Sergeant Williams, including YNW Juvie's mother, this is when we would then see YNW Juvie's father, revealing that he believed from the beginning that YNW Melly was the guilty one.
From the day one, I believe that Melly was responsible for my son on October 26th when I first heard the story, because his explanation, when I finally talked to him in Cortland on a FaceTime, their response and how they was reacting, they showed no remorse. They didn't act like they was grieving, like they lost a best friend or nothing. They was, in my opinion, they was in the best spirits. They wasn't reacting to, they act like they didn't have to take a loss at all. That's how I took it. And then when I was talking to them, I still had in the back of my mind that something's not right.
Not to mention, if the new reports that came out this week are true, YNW Melly's bond hearing will become even more interesting, as a report was shared this week. According to a juror who served in the YNW Melly trial, claims a majority of the jurors wanted to convict him, but one woman that was on the jury was determined to find Melly not guilty, and then she convinced 2 others to say he wasn't guilty too. Also adding, quote, "His mom is lying. It was a 9-3 guilty, not the other way around," which ends up being a response to YNW Melly's mother, who would go on to post on her Snapchat story the day after the mistrial, 9 not guilties, 3 guilty. It was a mistrial. My son will be home soon. However, it all gets a lot deeper than this, as the juror that was doing the anonymous interview would go on to call out one specific juror that wanted to be a hero. That juror knew from the beginning she was not going to change her mind at all, and walked into the trial knowing YNW Melly is not guilty.
Now, this is from Local 10 News right out of Fort Lauderdale. And they said most jurors wanted to convict Melly of 2 counts of the Broward County, the former juror has said. Now, this juror is speaking on the condition of anonymity, which means that they're not going to disclose their identity. The juror blamed the mistrial on one woman who served on the jury who appeared to be determined to acquit Jamel Demons. The juror goes on to say that from day one, she had issues with the 4-person selected, at one point crossing her arms and saying that she was done. When another juror asked to not shut down and she set her feelings aside, she was manipulative, she was rude, she yelled insults at everyone, and she was just had a different opinion. The juror stated that she was there just to cause chaos.
As sources would begin to claim this hero juror that wanted some fame or some sort of financial gain to be the one to save YNW Melly in this case, completely ruined the entire trial, as the original votes was 11-1 for YNW Melly being guilty. However, YNW Melly got extremely lucky that one hero juror wanted to save his life. This is when, though, she would do something very unexpected.
The last day of deliberation, the former juror said that while it appeared that there was 11-1 to convict Demmons, with the woman pulled two jurors aside and spoke to them for a few minutes and convinced them to come to her side. They stated, and I quote, "Then she came over and announced to the group that they had changed their minds, but when another juror asked why she was speaking for them, the former juror said, adding that the woman then hurled insults, including at the man who was questioning her. And without an agreement, Broward County Circuit Judge John J. Murphy declared the mistrial, and you guys remember that.
With us now understanding the hero juror's story, we would then hear the story of the anonymous juror that was doing the interview, and why they even did the interview in the first place, which ends up making YNW Melly's mother look extremely unprofessional.
The former juror said that the decision to speak up about what happened behind the scenes resulted from reports from Demmons' mother, Jamie King, who said that they were deadlocked at 9-3 in favor of an acquittal, which again, we find out from this juror, is incorrect. The former juror said it was actually the opposite. She said that she had came out because she said, "I don't want someone out there changing my vote." And she then goes on to say that you tell a lie enough, it becomes the truth. Now here's the best snippet. It says the next hearing for the case is on August 4th, and Demmons' team, as well as the prosecutors, agreed to start jury selection for the next trial on October 2nd. But again, we don't know if the judge is going to agree to a dual trial.
Including as this week, O Block resident Jay Hood would also share information we never knew about Melly either. A friend of King Von would do something very unexpected during an interview, as he goes on to reveal that he was hanging out with King Von in O Block one night, and King Von may have mentioned a little too much to a group of people that were located in O Block, as Jay Hood would go on to reveal all.
Did Vaughn really tell you that Melly told him that he was two friends?
He ain't come out and say, like, we got into an argument. And so, you know, if you know, when people could say something without saying it. And so he told me, like, once I posted what I posted, Vaughn was mad at me. Bro, why you put up there, bro? Walk the bam. I'm like, you sitting up here, like, you know the love we got. You do this for us, but you gonna trust that his two friends? And he said, them was trying to extort him. And so I'm like, if they was trying to extort him, then why are you still around them?
He revealed information that we never even knew, involving Sack Chaser and Juvie going after Melly for financial gain. And you almost just really want to believe Jay Hood. Vaughn and Melly were really good friends many years ago. They made a song titled Rolling together, and there's even a famous video of Vaughn and Dirk calling YNW Melly in jail when he was at his lowest.
Bust, you got 10 piece. Bust harder than mine. It's me. It's the It's y'all. I say you had a 10 piece. Sean.
As when you mix in that Jay Hood interview revealing that information, when you add it with the other evidence against Melly, things get very concerning, as the lead detective reveals a text message of Melly admitting to doing the crime.
The PC Gambino account asked him if he was okay, and his response was, "I did that," and placed a smiley face emoji.
And the next message from 10/26/2018 at 16:02 from Eastern Standard Time. The YNW Melly count says what?
After that, SHHHH.
And could you please stand and point on the right side of the screen exactly which part you're saying where the YNW Melly account says, "I did that"?
I did that. This is the thread ID. This is the text. This is the author. This is the recipient. Then you come down here, same thing. The ID is for the actual message, which is just specific that one message, then the threat ID is the actual continuation of continuing message.
Thankfully, though, in YNW Melly's case, his trial will not be with YNW Bortland's, as a lawyer would go on to explain why trying them together would have been a slam dunk for the prosecution.
Issue here, and you can try them together. It is to the benefit of the state to try them together. It's just more efficient. You don't have to do things again and again. Do it all at once, and also you get a better chance of having them incriminate each other during the trial. It benefits the defense to sever it. That way they can point the finger at each other and get away with it. So this is what's going on. But I don't think it should be automatically severed because the state is seeking the penalty for Melly, because it's only the penalty phase of the trial that would be different, not the guilt phase. The guilt phase is the same. They're both capital crimes. You're seeking the penalty on one, not the other, but that goes into the second part of the trial, the penalty phase, only if Melly is found guilty.